Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We have quorum. I am now calling meeting number 5 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Etobicoke Civic Centre in the council chamber. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you are registered to speak today at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Etobicoke York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on May 15th, 2023? Councillor Morley moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're going to go through the items. EY 6.1, 1860, 1860A, 1862, 1864, 1866, 1866A, and 1868 Keele Street zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications, decision report approval. We have speakers, so that item will be held. EY 6.2, 2801 James Street zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report approval. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.3, 408 Horner Avenue zoning bylaw amendment, decision report for approval. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.4, 5230 Dundas Street West, 3825 Bloor Street West, and 0 Beamish Drive, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision applications, decision report. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.5, 19 Dyson Court, application to remove a private tree. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.6, 5 Verona Avenue, application to remove 2 city trees. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.7, 92 North Drive, application to remove 3 city trees. We have speakers. That item will be held. EY 6.8, 148 The Kingsway, request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have speakers, and that item will be held. EY 6.9, 55 Allenhurst Drive, request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have a speaker registered, so that item will be held, and I will take a moment to advise my colleagues that I will be moving a deferral motion on that particular item to next day. EY 6.10, appointment of public members to the George Bell Arena Board. That's Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.11, Woodstream Drive, parking amendments and heavy truck prohibition. That's Councillor Crescent, so I'll hold that in my name. Give him an opportunity to deal with that. EY 6.12, 555 Rexdale Boulevard, traffic control signals. That's Councillor Crescente's. I will also hold that in my name. EY 6.13, 555 Rexdale Boulevard, non-delegated traffic control signals. Hold that as well for Councillor Crescente. EY 6.14, Easthampton Drive and Greyswood Court, stop control. May I have someone move the staff recommendations for me? All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.15, Edgemore Drive and Humbervale Boulevard, always stop control. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.16, Government Road and Mill Cove, Thorndale Crescent, stop control. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.17, Orpington Crescent and Masseygrove Crescent, east intersection, and Orpington Crescent and Orpington Crescent, east intersection. Compulsory stop control, that's Councillor Crescente's, we'll hold that. EY 6.18, Kane Avenue at Dunraven Drive and Aileen Avenue, temporary stop signs. Councillor Nunziata.
Move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.19, 1001 to 1037, the Queensway, construction staging area. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 6.20, 240 Markland Drive, construction staging area. May I ask someone to move the staff recommendations? Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.20, excuse me, EY 6.21, Colonel Sam Smith Park Drive, parking amendments. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.22, Grandville Avenue, parking amendments. Councillor Nunziata.
Move staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.23, 315 to 327 Royal York Road and 27 to 39 Newcastle Street, community benefits and Class 4 noise classification, request for direction report. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morley is holding this item. EY 624, Lemonade for Love. So members, I'm going to just propose that we move this up to the top. We've got some visitors today, and I'm sure they would, they'd love to get to school. Maybe not. Well, we'll bring it up to the top. So I'll call you up in just a moment. And we have a couple of items to add to the agenda. All right. All right, I understand there are a number of new business items that need to be added to the agenda. Councillor Perruzza, can you introduce your three items, please? Do you need them?
No, they're here. I do have them. I don't know if members have. So there's a no stopping on Driftwood Avenue here. Maybe take one and just pass it down. The second item is an investigation of traffic calming measures on Ben Rubin Drive. I'll pass that on as well. And the third is an all-way stop control at Strathburn Boulevard and Melody Road.
Councillor Perruzza moves to add these three items as new business. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Okay. So, Okay, EY 611 Woodstream Drive, parking amendments and heavy truck prohibition. We had that held on the rundown. Microphone? Councillor Crescent moves staff recommendations on EY 6.11 Woodstream Drive, parking amendments and heavy truck prohibition. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. Councillor Crescent, EY 6.12 555 Rexdale Boulevard, delegated traffic control signals. Councillor Crescent moves staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.13 555 Rexdale Boulevard, non-delegated traffic control signals. Councillor Crescent moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 6.17 Orpington Crescent and Masseygrove Crescent and Orpington Crescent and Orpington Crescent, compulsory stop control. Councillor Crescent. Councillor Crescent moves staff recommendations on EY 6.17. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right, we're just going to go back to the modified order to EY 6.24, Lemonade for Love. And I don't know, Councillor Morley, did you want to read the introduction as our guests find their way up to the front?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It'd be my pleasure. So Lemonade for Love is a lemonade stand with a super sweet twist. It is a child-driven, parent-supported fundraising event that is all about kids helping kids. Lemonade for Love began in 2014 as a small lemonade stand in front of a yard in Etobicoke. It is now a well-attended community event that happens each June at Fairfield Park in Etobicoke. To date, Lemonade for Love has raised and reinvested over $150,000 back into our local community through the hashtag Captain Xavier Fund at Silver Creek Preschool for children with special needs in Etobicoke. This fund provides scholarships to help families send their children to Silver Creek Preschool, as well as offers financial support to families at Silver Creek who may need assistance with the cost of medical devices, equipment, and/or aids. This event is championed by youth ambassadors who are here with us today, who represent Lemonade for Love in the community. Please welcome this year's ambassadors to the Etobicoke York Community Council to share their presentation and invite us to the 9th annual event, which will take place this Saturday, June 24th, from 9 to 12 at Fairfield Park, and I hope to see you there. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us. My name is Grace, and this is Maddie, Kiara, Adeline, Addie, Ruby, and Badri. We are all ambassadors for Lemonade for Love, and we are so excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
Lemonade for Love started in 2014 on Addie's front yard when she was just 5 years old. Each year since then, the lemonade stand got bigger and bigger until we could no longer fit on the front lawn and started having it at Fairfield Park. Last summer, we served over 1,000 bottles of lemonade.
This year, we're planning on serving lemonade and cupcakes from bake sale. There will also be live music from local musicians, a selfie station, a crafts table, and a music circle for tots. This event is a pay what you can to ensure that everyone from the community can participate in the event.
Lemonade for Love began with the goal of engaging young people to celebrate with and give back to their communities. Lemonade for Love has provided a space for young people to learn skills about advocacy, leadership, and community service. Now that we have learned these skills, it's our goal to pass them on to the next generation of Lemonade for Love ambassadors.
Since 2017, all of the money raised from Lemonade for Love has gone towards Silver Creek Preschool. We have created a scholarship fund called the Captain Xavier Fund that helps families who are unable to afford tuition pay for the tuition, and we have raised over $150,000 to help pay for medical devices and equipment.
As ambassadors, we raise awareness about the event, but we also get the opportunity to meet with the kids at Silver Creek. We spent a morning at the preschool a couple weeks ago and had the opportunity to see the impact the fundraisers had on the experience of the students and their family. In spite of all the extra challenges and hurdles the family face, the spirit and amongst the students and staff is heartwarming and inspirational.
If you would like to save the date, the event is happening on Saturday, June 24th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We are always looking for partners to help us spread the news about Silver Creek and this event, and we are so happy to have this opportunity to speak with you. Does anyone have any questions?
Well done. And I think all the speakers can learn a little from you today, but thank you for joining us. I will ask my colleagues if there's any questions. So I have one. How do you make the lemonade? What goes in it?
Ooh.
Besides love.
Well, I feel like that's a secret recipe. I feel like we can't share that. But we do have some lemonade to pass out today to the counselors if you're okay with that.
Well, how much does the lemonade cost?
That's up to you.
It's up to us. It's up to us. All right. So we have complimentary. So there's 5 up here. I'd like an order of 5, please.
Oh, thank you.
But I don't know about complimentary. I wondered if the clerk could deliver something. On behalf of the Etobicoke York Community Council and the councillors who are the lucky recipients of lemonade, I want to thank you for coming today. I want to wish you all the best for your event, and most importantly, to recognize the impact you've made in the community. And I do remember you coming before to this community council, and it's exciting to see the momentum keep building. So congratulations for all the work, and I wish you every success. I know you'll be successful. Thank you.
Maybe you can go around. There's so many people in the council chamber, so you can get a collection. Do you have a bag or anything?
Okay, we'll start now at the top of the order paper. Perfect. All right, EY 6.1. Take a deep breath for this. 1860, 1868, 1862, 1864, 1866, 1866A, and 1868 Keele Street zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition application decision report. And we have a speaker, David Morse. David's online. Good morning, David. Can you hear us okay? It's Stephen Holiday. Well, we can't hear you. So if you just hang on a second there, let's get that audio sorted. David, we still can't hear you. Did you hear me tell you that? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, you did. So, okay. So you can hear us. Your sound's not coming in. David, we're going to stand this item down. You're the only speaker on it, and we're going to see if we can get your audio sorted out and come back, okay? We've got a couple of other items and some speakers to go through, and that should give us a few minutes. And the clerks are just asking me to pass you the message to see if you can connect your audio from your end. Thank you. Okay, so we're just going to stand down EY 6.1. Because it's David's the only speaker, so we're going to have to come back to that. Next item is EY 6.2, 2801 Jane Street Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application Decision Report. We have one speaker. That's Matthew Salucci. Good morning. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You've got 5 minutes.
Awesome. Good morning, Chair and fellow councillors. My name is Matthew Salucci. I'm here on behalf of GF 2801 Jane Street Limited, the owners of the property. Before I briefly speak to the proposal, I just want to thank the community planning team, Lisa Hosale and Ohi Ezrayan, for all their hard work to get this application to where it is today. As you know, city staff recommendation for approval report is for 2801 Jane Street, which is located in the Black Creek neighborhood at the southeast corner of Jane Street and York Woods Gate. The proposal is for the infill development of an 11-story purpose-built rental building, which is south of the existing 17-story building, on vacant land that is currently not being utilized. This existing 17-story building will be fully retained, no demolition. The proposed development will provide 224 much-needed rental units and will introduce approximately 10,000 square feet of new indoor and outdoor amenity area. We believe our proposal aligns perfectly with the city's Jane and Finch initiative, which is described as developing a community development plan and a land use plan so that residents and businesses are supported as the area changes over time with the opening of the Finch West LRT. We have read the staff report and are in full support of the recommendations and hope it can be supported and moved by council today. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, just confirming that was the last speaker. Great. Questions of staff? Seeing none, members wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Moving staff recommendations for EY 6.2. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Okay, we're going to go back to number 1. We're going to give this a try again. EY 6.1, 1860, 1868, 1862, 1864, 1866, 1866A, and 1868 Keele Street, zoning bylaw amendment, rental housing demolition applications, decision report. First speaker is David Morse. Let's see if we can get David online. Good morning, David. David, if you can hold on, hopefully you can hear us, if you can give me a nod. So we're still having some audio trouble in the room. We're starting to trace it. It might be at our end. So we're going to ask you just to hang on another minute because we're going to go to another item and see if we can get it sorted out. Thanks for your patience. Okay, we're going to go to EY 6.3, 408 Horner Avenue, zoning bylaw amendment decision report. Our first speaker is Robert Walters. Robert's here. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council, Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just set up my presentation.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have the PowerPoint on the agenda, so I'll go through this quickly in the interest of time. So the subject property is quite large. It's over 13,000 square feet at 408 Horner Avenue. It's the depth of 2 single-family lots. It currently has a triplex and a double-car garage on the property. There's a mix of uses on the north side, including a 6-unit apartment building to the west and a 2-story garage to the east, which is under construction, as I understand. There's single detached dwellings to the north and transit on Horner and 30th Street. The current planning status is outlined in the staff report. We're asking for rezoning to permit a maximum of 9 units. The 3 existing rental units, 1 to be reconstructed, and 6 new rental units. Maximum GFA of 825 square meters, lot coverage 27%, 45% minimum landscaping, of which 80% has to be soft landscaping, 50% of that in the rear. Maximum 2-story height, yards per the site plan, 5 parking spaces maximum, and 11 bicycle parking spaces. This is the design that we showed the community in April 2022, and it had 7 parking spaces at grade under the building and 3 at the rear. Based on community input, which was provided to the planning department and negotiation, we've revised the concept to address community concerns, to reduce the length of the addition, increase the east and west side yards, reduce the height, and increase the amount of soft landscaping. So to recap, the changes include a drop in height of 1.06 meters and 3 to 2 stories, the maximum depth reduction of 5.2 meters and an additional 3.5 meters on the top floor. We removed the parking at grade and we reduced the total parking from 10 to 5 spaces. We increased the east and west side yards. We removed the internal corridor and the outside walkway along the east lot line. We reduced the size of the windows on the east and west elevations, increased the amount of soft landscaping, and increased bike parking. The front elevation remains unchanged, so from the streetscape there will be no change, no visual impact. There's the west elevation. You can see the reduced windows in the lower height of the addition. Most of the windows are at the north end of the building, which is 95 feet from the rear lot line. The east elevation, very similar to the west, small windows. These are a series of shadow diagrams that you can see in the presentation, and they start from the east and rotate around to the west. There's no impact really until later in the afternoon at 3:18, and then more impact would be usual between 3 and 5 p.m. In terms of impact assessment, again, there's no visual impact from the public realm. We've dropped the height to 2 stories with a flat roof. It's less than a single-family dwelling. The yards have been increased. They're greater than the existing triplex. The rear yard is 95 feet, which is the depth of a single-family lot. Substantial buffering vegetation is proposed. No significant shadow impact. In terms of privacy, the windows face into that 2-story garage that I mentioned to the east. The terraces on the top floor are 2.5 meters from the lot line. There's no direct exposure, and there's lots of planting and privacy fencing around the property, as well as planting. Traffic and pedestrian safety, there was no traffic impact study requested for this. It doesn't generate that kind of traffic. We did provide a parking brief, which justifies the 5 parking spaces, which conforms to the city's new zoning bylaw, which allows a maximum of 12 spaces. Provided 11 bicycle spaces. The proposal supports transit, active transportation, and ride sharing. No significant noise assessment. Landscaping, of which there's a lot, which I've mentioned, lots of amenity area in the rear. Supporting studies are outlined in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and we are in support of the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Agatha Chezik. Is Agatha in the room? Check if, is Agatha online? I'm seeing a no. Okay. The next speaker is Eric Tang. Is Eric in the room? Good morning, Eric. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes for a presentation. Please begin when you're ready. And I'm going to, apparently the clock's not working, so I'm going to try to spin that around so you can see it and you can gauge accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Good morning, Councillor Morley. I have sent our letters reflecting this issue. We're a group of residents. I'm the owner of 406 Horner, directly east of the property. We, as a group, are opposed to the rezoning. We stress that the council vote against the rezoning change. We feel that this will add a negative impact to the community, and the 6 units is too much, given that there's already 5 existing units there. I'm just going to quickly go over the number of concerns that we have outlined in my letter. The first one is the number of units in the existing building. The application is a legal triplex, but we believe that there's 5 units on site. So if you add the 5 units plus the additional 6, we're looking at approximately 11 units. The second point is the number of units proposed. We do not see that being fit in the community and in our neighborhood. If you refer to the planning justification report, it does discuss the recent developments near the area. And if you review it, the majority of them are minor variances, and nothing in the breadth and scope of what we're talking at 408 Horner. This, we feel that will set a precedence within the community where we're adding an additional 6 units, for a total of anywhere between 9 to 11 units. If we talk about developments that are similar within the area, you could look at 412 Horner, which is directly west of 408 Horner. That unit is approved for what we believe is U5, so it's really 5 units there. So you go from a triplex or a fiveplex like that and jump to a 9 to 11 unit building. That's going to really impact, and I don't feel in that neighborhood with our children, biking and playing in that area will be suitable for a family neighborhood like that, where primarily most of the houses are single detached homes. The third point is parking. I understand the recent updates have incorporated less parking spaces, but that's not really what we intend, because when we talk to the neighborhood, most of the residents are concerned about the overflow parking. Residents at 408 parking in the nearby neighborhood. So we understand, based on the parking brief that was provided to us, there is justification for the 5, but given only 5 parking spaces, and you're looking realistically in this property between 18 to 35 people living there. So I understand the city's movement to create less parking and more towards public transit. But realistically, my family has 2 cars. A lot of people living in 1 to 2 bedroom apartments, which is reflective of this property, will have that 1 or 2 cars. So when you're looking at 9 to 11 units, and if you do the math quickly, 9 cars, 15 cars, how are those cars going to be able to fit in 5 parking spots, which is very challenging. So as a resident there, you would probably have to park your other cars in the area, and the residents would rather not see that happen. Probably they would want to see more parking on the spot and less units there. And the last point is, the proposed line is not in line with the community or the official plan. We feel that these are high-end residents looking at 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and not the affordable housing that we need. And I know that's what Councilor Mori has really stressed for our neighborhoods. Yep, that's all I have. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening to me today.
Thank you, Eric. Just hang on, if you don't mind. Are there any questions of the speaker? I had one quick one, if I can.
Sure.
Chair to my colleague.
Councillor Holiday, question?
Eric, you mentioned that you were concerned that there are 5 units there. So
Right.
our staff report tells us that there's 3. And to the extent that you're comfortable doing so in the public forum, would you just let me know what leads you to think there's 5?
Absolutely, yeah. We simply took a picture of the front. There are 5 mailboxes, so I could pass this to you, Councillor Holiday. So if you look at the picture, is clearly I've labeled it 5 mailboxes. And if you look at the actual plans of the existing building, there is a superintendent room as well. So that really is a unit. It's not really meant, or we believe, as a superintendent's room. So would I be able to pass this forth to you, Councillor?
You can, and you can always email it later. But I was
Okay.
I was intrigued by that just because it's a different number than the report, and that's always concerning because we're making decisions here, and the number is 9. But
Absolutely.
If the number's more than 9, I'd like to know that.
Right. Yeah. And realistically, yeah, we want to talk about apples to apples, orange to orange, and if we're talking about different units, that could really affect the outcome of the community.
Beyond the mailbox, is there anything else that you've got that would lead you to believe there's more? For instance, coming and going of people, that kind of stuff.
Yep, for sure. I've been in the unit itself, so yeah, I've seen additional units within the building as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking to us today. Just check, no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
I'm just going to call one more time for Agata Chezik. Agata's not online. I'll call to see if there's anyone else wishing to speak on this item. Seeing none. Questions of staff? Okay, there's someone else at the back there. Do we have your name to the clerk? Claudio, I didn't catch your last name, but it's okay. If you want to come up, we'll get you registered with the clerk. Maybe just to make the clerks easier, if you can just read your name into the microphone. It's hard to hear from all the way over
No
here.
problem at all. Good morning. My name is Claudio Parisi, as I mentioned.
Okay,
A little surprising.
welcome.
I thought I did register for us to be speaking here today, but
And sometimes it doesn't make it to
Absolutely.
my list. So,
It makes
welcome.
sense.
You've got 5 minutes.
perfect. Again, I'm the owner of 17 Davik Drive, which is the property east, right behind Eric's backyard. We as well oppose the proposed zoning bylaw change on this. I'll just quickly read my submission letter. And this letter is in response to the rezoning application of the 408 Horner Avenue on behalf of the concerned community residents. The above-mentioned application, as resubmitted by Robert Walters Planning, has not captured the intent to mitigate the various concerns stated in previous correspondence dated May 1st of 2020. In previous meetings with the city planning, we clearly communicated those concerns, which include, but not limited to, many of the concerns that Eric went through, number of the units, size and scale of the units on the proposed addition, parking and the overflow capacity. One in particular is the sunshade study report, and proposed plan, obviously not aligned or misaligned with the community appropriateness. It is disheartening to learn that the resubmission of this application did not consider the full scope of these issues. This could have been easily achieved by reducing the total 6 units, as was originally planned, to 4 units, reducing the negative impact on area residents. The applicant seems to have chosen profits over community consciousness. The position was evident in correspondence with the applicant planning consultant, who in a misdirected email stated, quote, "Maybe we can try to placate Claudio at L later. In any case, this guy is being unreasonable," end quote. I had attached an email, which I guess had some cause for concern with privacy issues. But anyway, at the end of the day, the argument here is one of perversion, whereby the unreasonableness is that of the applicant, and by default, the city, who does not serve to have the best interests of the community at heart. We will continue to oppose this application for as long and for how longer it takes to reach a collaborative resolve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudio. Any questions? Claudio, hang on, please. Councillor Morley has a question for you.
Sure thing, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Claudio. Thank you for coming today.
No problem.
So you mentioned that you weren't satisfied with some of the changes, and I just wondered if you could, because I was obviously in briefing and understanding the file before us. My understanding was there was quite a significant amount of changes that happened, including the reduction in parking spaces, the height changes, so that the shadow impacts for the neighbors were in fact addressed. So can you talk to me, was there anything positive in the resubmission that you saw that was in fact speaking to
Well,
the concerns brought forward from residents?
Absolutely. The major one concern is the sun shadow effect. Obviously, the presentation just viewed beforehand obviously went through quickly on some of the stages, but it didn't have consideration with, and I believe there's 5 or 6 trees planted on the borderline of my backyard. And when those trees are fully grown up to 30 or 40 feet, that sunshade report did not factor in that consideration on those trees growing up to full maturity and casting the shadow well beyond what it was devised or what was shown on the reports as well.
Okay.
And basically from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till sunset, my backyard will be basically in perpetual shade because of the addition. So that is a concern.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll check. Anyone else? Might not be on the list. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Councillor Morley.
To staff, thank you for your work on this file. I just wondered if you could please comment on the appropriateness of this kind of addition in the neighborhood as we are moving towards trying to support more housing options in single-family residential.
Through you, Mr. Chair. This proposal has gone through some significant change. When it first came in and when we were originally processing it, we did feel it was a bit too much for the lot. And we pushed back to have it redesigned to address some of the physical impacts like shadowing and to contain the number of units to a maximum that was generally in keeping with where we're going with multiplexing. If you look at the area map attached to the report, it's a double lot. It's a double length lot. Keep in mind today in multiplexing, you could have 4 units on a lot as of right with recent approvals. So we're talking in the realm of 8 for a double lot like this anyway. But the advantage here is we could holistically look at all the issues. It helps that the site's on Horner, right? It's much more of an arterial road type condition. I'll admit, if there was a double lot like this in the heart of the neighborhood, it might be harder to address some of the issues that we might have felt. But we, I think, achieved the setbacks we were looking for. We got a good parking ratio, but not so much that it's all gravel or all pavement on the site. We've scaled it back, terraced it back. I think overall, it's much better today than it was when it came in.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. I'm going to ask a question as well. Can I pass the chair to Councillor Nunziata, please?
Councillor Holiday, question to staff.
Thank you. I just wondered if staff could reconcile the unit numbers. I am concerned if residents have seen something that's different. Can you help Community Council understand what we're approving today and if that gives any assurances there won't be growth in the number of units?
Sure, Councillor. I think in the past there is evidence that there were more units than 3 in the original building, right? Speaker spoke to the number of mailboxes, for example. We do know, we've been on site, one of the mailboxes relates to the owner himself. We have been provided declarations. We've looked at the rent roll, and we've been assured there's only 3 units in the triplex. What we have before committee here and council eventually is for a 9-unit proposal, of which 3 will be in that triplex. So references to 11, that's not what council's approving. Committee's approving today. It's approving 9. And if there are more than 3 units, which we don't believe there are, and we have assurances and documentation that say there are not more than 3 units in the existing triplex, nothing prevents us or anyone from having MLS do a site inspection or looking into this matter further. But we feel comfortable this is 3 units in the triplex right now.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, to speak on the item, Councillor Morley.
This is a tricky one, and I want to thank the community members who've come out today to share their experiences and what the process has been like from their perspective. I do think, having worked previously as a staffer and having done a lot of mediation and working with residents and applicants, these are difficult things to process. Change is not easy. But we did recently, as council, adopt to expand housing options in our neighborhoods. You mentioned the experience, Eric, of your family in the neighborhood, and I'm really mindful of the 80,000 residents waiting for affordable housing, and the many, many hundreds of thousands of other Torontonians who are looking for a place to call home. And I know Alderwood is an incredible community and one that would welcome new residents with open arms. So notwithstanding the issue related to the unit size concern, and I will make a commitment through my office, and my staff are here listening intently, that we will follow up with MLS to make sure that the number of units currently and going forward is as stated, and is as we understand it to be, as is required. And so we will continue to work with the local community on this file, and to make sure that the applicant moves forward responsibly. But I will be supporting staff recommendations on this file, and I do appreciate the work and engagement of both local residents and our planning staff, as well as the applicant, who has made some significant changes to this plan to make it more in keeping with what is appropriate. So thank you to all involved, and that's those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, Councillor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right, we're going to try number one more time. See if we can get the speaker connected. So EY 6.1, 1860, 1868, 1862, 1864, 1866, 1866A, and 1868 Keele Street zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications decision report. First speaker is David Morse. Hello, David. And David, I'm sorry, we still have no sound. So the clerk advises what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We're going to do some resetting of our equipment here, and we're going to come right back to you. Okay, 5-minute recess. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
going.
Give me 1 second.
Mute yourself. He's not speaking.
We don't know if he's talking.
No, you'd see the ring around him. He's not speaking. Could you unmute the mic? Hi, David. Could we have you just talk into your microphone for about 20 seconds, if possible?
You hear me?
No, nothing.
I brought this laptop over.
Okay, that's, we have done that. Oh, 32, 38, 25 roads. No, we don't do it.
No, but they just
So we can't do anything about it. You said we can't do anything about it. Well, listen, like I said, look, St. Andrew's Church, that's our reason. She doesn't want to sell it. I offered her 3.5. I guess she's got to give her money back in St. Ebert. That's Liberty Development. That's muted too, right? Yeah, so. Yeah, it's still going to take at least a couple years. Okay, everyone, thank you for your patience. That was a very long 5 minutes. Just confirming with the clerk that we are live on feed. All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Just an announcement so everyone understands what's happening. We've lost the ability to hear the online participants in the room, but they are otherwise properly connected and able to connect to the YouTube feed and so on. So it's very important that we're able to allow them to make a deputation, but I will advise that we can't process an item if somebody is registered, is online, and is seeking to speak. So we're going to do our best to go through the items that we can where everyone is physically present in the room. And as we get down the list, we will deal with those electronically. We've got a couple of ideas to try to make that work, and we will go through as best as we can. So apologies, we're going to reorder the paper a little bit to make this as efficient as possible for everyone. So the very first item of business is going to be, after this break, is EY 6.24. We're just going to do a procedural point here. Lemonade for Love. Councillor Morley, you need to move, if you please, that Etobicoke York Community Council receive the presentation by Lemonade for Love for information.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morley moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Councillor Morley, we're going to just work backwards up the list here to EY 6.23, which is 315 to 327 Royal York Road, and 27 to 39 Newcastle Street, Community Benefits and Class 4 Area Noise Classification. Request for direction report. I understand you've got some amendments.
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. There is a technical amendment from staff. It is on the screen. Again, it's very technical and minor in nature, and I would like to move that as an amendment to the item.
And apologies, before we do that, were there any questions of staff? Seeing none. Councillor Morley moves an amendment. All those in favor on the amendment? On the item as amended, all those in favor? And that item carries. So 6.23 is done. Okay, we're going to continue to hold down item number 1 because of the technical issues. 6.2 is complete, 6.3 is complete, 6.4 has digital participants, so we're going to continue to hold that. EY 6.5, which is 19 Dyson Court, that's in Ward 1, application to remove a private tree. Do we have Eleanor Cheka present? Is Eleanor registered online?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe she is, but anyway, we can wait just in case.
Councillor Crescent, is your desire to hold this down, or do you want to process the item?
No, we could process the item. We're good.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you for the
Questions of
opportunity.
staff?
No questions of staff.
Councillor Crescent to speak.
Okay. I'm gonna approve, Mr. Chair, the removal of the tree and the and also the alternate motion that's in the report, and it reads: Etobicoke York Community Council approved the request for a permit to remove one privately owned tree located at 19 Dyson Court, and require the applicant to provide 5 replacement trees, which can be achieved in a combination of on-site planting and cash in lieu of planting, to the satisfaction of the General Manager of Parks, Forestry and Recreation. So that's my motion, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Crescent moves an alternate recommendation to grant removal of the tree. All those in favor of the amendment? That carries. On the item as amended? Thank you, Madam Clerk. That item is done. Okay, EY 6.6 is 5 Verona Avenue. I have Igor Augusto Kauk, and I also have Bruno Lopez. Do we have Bruno Lopez online? Bruno is not online. Okay, so we will have, Councillor Nunziata, you're okay to move forward with that? We've got one speaker, and the other speaker is not online. Yes, you're ready to go? Okay. Our first speaker on EY 6.6, 5 Verona Avenue, application to remove 2 city trees Igor Augusto Koch. Welcome back, Igor. I think you were here before.
Yes.
5 minutes to speak. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, so we're applying to remove 2 trees of everyone now. We're doing a lot severance and providing 2 single dwelling family units. We've been here on May 15 and we got deferred. So we have the opportunity to contact Francis Nunziata, the councillor, to discuss further this matter, which we did last week, and we explained the situation to her. And even though we have a staff report that wants to maintain the 2 trees, we see that the arborist report states that those trees are in poor condition and they probably going to be gone soon. So we're proposing a replantation plan, and that's basically it.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I did defer that, this item at the last meeting, so we did speak to the applicant. So I have a motion for the alternative there.
Councillor Nunziata is moving a motion, an alternate rec for the removal of the 2 trees. All those in favor of the item? Any opposed? That item carries. Okay, we've got, the next item is EY 6.7, 92 North Drive, application to remove 3 city trees. I have 2 people registered. I have Christopher McCormick and I have Laura Watson. Laura's online. Okay, so if we can get a message to advisor that we're going to continue to hold this item because we're not able to hear her speak. And if circumstances change between now and the end of the meeting, we'll come back to it. You want to try it? Okay, the clerk's advising me we're going to try to see if we can hear Laura. And we'll see how this goes, and if it doesn't work, we'll continue to hold the item. So, Laura, it's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear us? I see a nod, and we're going to try to get your audio in the room. Can you go ahead and speak? Please go on. The members of the committee can hear you. We've got a little bit of feedback when I talk, but I just want you to be able to speak, and we'll be able to deal with the item. Thank you, Laura. Recognizing there may be a delay in the audio, I'll check with my colleagues if there's any questions of the speaker. Seeing none, thank you for your deputation. The Community Council was able to hear you through some smaller speakers here at the front, but I'm glad that we were able to hear you speak. Okay, our next speaker is Christopher McCormick. Christopher, you're here. Come on up to the front. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You've got 5 minutes.
Architect for this project, which we've been working on with the client and various people and staff for the last 2 or 3 years. I will focus my remarks on the context, which may be helpful to make an analysis of this application. It's a large ravine lot that had a house built on it in the 1930s with quite a deteriorated basement condition. Our clients fell in love with the property, which has, as was mentioned, a couple of stone walls on either side of the boulevard in front of the property that's quite beloved in the neighborhood. We learned this through the Committee of Adjustment process, where there were, I think, 14 variances that were all approved unanimously. But one of the applications that we had, which transportation was supportive of, was to introduce a second driveway, because North is not a continuously busy street, but it is busy and it has unusually quick traffic. And the family that is our client that has purchased this property has 3 young children. When we started the project, they were all under 10. And there was a very important motherhood issue for the family, that they could drive in a forward direction onto North and not back onto the street. When we went through this process, Laura was the arborist who was retained to help us. She tagged, and her team tagged 129 trees on the property. And the application that we made for design was to reintroduce the architecture onto the site in the same footprint that the existing house is on. And that way we were able to save this mature, very beautiful canopy of trees. I think of the 129 trees, there may be half a dozen, and 4 of them are dead that need to be removed. The ones that we're talking about today are on the boulevard, which is a 13-foot by 134-foot strip of land along North. And in order to get the second drive in, which is quite typical on the street, there are 3 trees that are challenged, 2 that are in the way, and 1 which we are now able to save just by making the math work. And what I mean by the math is that a 2.4 meter radius is required for at any of these 3 trees for the size of the trees. But because of the way maps are drawn, the trees that are in front of the house, which are in no way near the ravine, are still classified as being under the auspices of the ravine. And so one applies quickly a 2 times factor to the 2.4 meters. If we respect the 2.4 meters, which is typically used in the city, and we move the driveway 1 foot or 0.3 meters east, we will meet that requirement to save one of the 3 trees, which fortunately is the tree that is considered to be 60% condition. The 2 that are slated for removal are thought of as 30% and 40%, and those assessments were made 3 years ago, so it could be that they're not even in that good a shape. I want to put in front of you my client as someone who's intends to be a very good steward of the landscape. Is very interested and motivated to improve it, and in doing so, in any kind of arrangement that needs to be made for the removal of these trees, would be very happy to plant new trees and new planting on the property. The other element that was mentioned were the stone walls. These are original. They're very low to the ground. They're a foot or 2 above the ground, but there isn't a requirement in the city that they don't abut the street, but that they're pushed back by 20 inches. And I think there is, I'm understanding from talking to staff, there is a legal process which we can enter into where they can be accepted, rather than trying to move them 20 inches at great cost and at risk to a couple of other trees that are in the boulevard. Hopefully this is something that the council can accept as a reasonable and thoughtful proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. I was interested in asking you a couple of questions. I'll pass the chair.
Councillor Holliday, questions?
Christopher, thank you for joining us. Just for the benefit of my colleagues, the original proposal was was an application to destroy 3 trees. Since that application was tabled, you've done some work to find a way to preserve one of the trees. It's your intention to preserve it. So you'll need the ability to injure the tree, and you will only need to remove 2 because they conflict with the driveway. Is that a proper
That is
proper
correct.
summary for my colleagues here?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and the other thing that has changed, or is a positive note, is there's an old stone wall in front of the property. And so it's your intention to preserve and maintain the stone wall where it is.
Yes,
And I think you're going to modify it a little bit to allow the driveway opening in a sensitive way that reflects the wall.
yes, it's all part of the original architecture on the site, that the front property, including this portion that's up against the land, is raised from the street.
Right.
So all the trees that are there are mature, and they've grown in that way, and so we're trying to disturb it as little as possible.
So that stone wall is both on private property and public property.
There are 2 walls.
Right, and if the property owner wanted to remove the stone wall on the public right-of-way and place it on the private land, that would result in the destruction of additional trees.
The opinion that we've been given by our arborist is that you would need to excavate up to 1 meter inside the wall in order to move the wall, and the wall itself is probably 18 inches thick. So there's quite a bit of disturbance to existing roots that, except for the rule, is unnecessary.
And the applicant understands that, or the owner understands that, notwithstanding the Committee of Adjustment approval, the potential approval of the trees, an agreement will need to be made with the city to deal with that wall.
We had a conversation recently with transportation, and they were very positive about the fact that there were 3 encumbrances in that area. One was a mailbox, which is now almost redundant in the city. The other was a small stone step, which is exactly where the driveway will be. So both of those will be removed. And the third element, the wall, they're looking for us to make it a legal conforming.
Right, so you'll enter into the agreements. We're not going to deal with those today, but you understand that you need to continue on that process.
Yeah, everybody's on the same page.
And if I move a motion that asks you to not cut the trees down until that other stuff is dealt with, that's clear enough to you? Despite approving the trees, you'd move forward once all the pieces are in place.
That would be fine.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking to us. Were there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions to staff?
Questions of staff? I don't have any. Anyone else have questions
No,
of staff?
no.
Great. Councillor Morley?
With respect to the wall that was mentioned, would it be something that would be grandfathered in per old bylaws, or what would be the technical change that would be required to allow the applicant to move forward?
Through the chair, it's going to be an application for encroachment. There's no grandfathering. We only grandfather what has been previously permitted. So in this case, we have nothing on file for permits. So they would just go through due process.
Okay, that's helpful. And to the applicant, pending the decision of council today, my office is happy to support, if needed, through that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Nunziata, I'm going to speak to this item if you could take the chair.
Councillor Holliday to speak.
Thank you. Members, I have 3 motions, and I'm just going to walk you through them. The first motion is to grant the approval to remove 2 of the city-owned trees. And this is a change from the report as we covered in the speaking. And it's otherwise a standard motion with respect to the alternate recs. And at this juncture, I will commend the applicant for doing some work between the last community council meeting and this community council meeting to shift the driveway a little bit to make all of this work and to save one of the trees. The second motion is that the Etobicoke York Community Council request the applicant to secure the necessary right-of-way approvals prior to commencing the removal of the trees. In other words, if the vote goes through today, we will grant permission, but we're going to ask them just to hold off to have all the ducks lined up. And the final motion, number 3, is that the Etobicoke Community Council direct the General Manager Transportation Services to negotiate and enter into an encroachment agreement with the property owner at 92 North Drive to maintain the encroachments in the Municipal Boulevard abutting North Drive. And that, I believe, makes the process a bit more efficient. Should there need to be a report back to Community Council, we can delegate that permission right now. And lastly, I would just like to thank staff, both in Transportation and Forestry Department, of course, the architect, the arborist, and the applicant, for seeing their way through a rather complex application that wasn't quite resolved when it was last here. And I'm glad we were able to cover off a number of the pieces in that. So on the First Amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. On the Second Amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. And on the Third Amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Madam Clerk, that's it. Those are the 3. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm advised there's a change in the status of a speaker, so I'm going to go back to the top of the list. I think this should just take a moment. EY 6.1, 1860, 1860A, 1862, 1864, 1866, 1866A, and 1868 Keele Street zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications. Decision report. I will check. Are there any speakers in the room? Are there any speakers online on this item? There are none. Questions of staff? Seeing none. To speak, Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll just move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. Okay. We'll go back into the order of the list. EY 6.8, which is 148 the Kingsway. Request for fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. I have 4 speakers registered. I believe they are in the room, and I do not believe we have any online. So the first speaker is Elaine Raditz-Wright. Is Elaine here? Yeah, I think that's fine. So is that Jarrett? Jarrett, welcome. Jarrett Wright. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak to council. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak about my fence exemption. Since I submitted that dossier to you all, about 20 pages, we've also obtained 4 more letters of support from the adjacent neighbors that would be affected. So that is essentially all the neighbors but one. So what I'm embarking on here in our backyard is putting in a multi-generational swim spa area. You know, I'm 50, I've got 2 kids, one's 4, one's 12. And so at the very back, it's a wide property. It's 70 feet by 50. We have a swim spa at the back and a sauna, and we're building the fence that masks that portion 8 feet tall approximately, because we're also putting in a deck, which is 20 inches. And under the bylaw, it says you can build a fence above your deck that is equal to 2 meters, which would be 6'6". So 6'6" plus those 20 inches is under what would be against the code. It was our interpretation that we were within code when we talked to contractors. So we went ahead and built 2/3 of the fence, prior to which we talked to all our neighbors. They were all in agreement, including the one that has reneged since then. And with that neighbor in particular, when we talked to them about it, we told them we'd be cladding both sides of the fence at our own expense. It's an extra $4,000 to do that they wouldn't have to pay for anything. We did that and also removed a dead tree that was close to the property line that had been in their yard for years that hadn't been removed as a sign of good faith. And then after it was completed, then there was the complaint, and we're here today because of that. Now, the issue is if we're made to cut that fence to 6'6", we build our deck. And because the one neighbor here in the back, they built their shed that encroaches on our property, and we brought our fence back versus making them move it, that our deck would start, because the current post is 6 inches wide, so our deck by code, a foot off the property line, would start 1 inch at this end, and when it got to the far end, it'd be about 4 to 5 inches away from the fence. So then we'd have to build an additional fence on top of the deck. So there'd be one fence that's 6'6", then another fence that would be about 8 feet, leaving this sliver of dead space where vermin and leaves can accumulate and decompose. And also aesthetically, it wouldn't be very beautiful. In our neighborhood, from our backyard, you can see at least 8 other fences that are around 8 feet tall that are more than 2 meters. So it's in harmony with the neighborhood as well. Any concerns such as creating unnecessary shade is not an issue with the one person who is not in agreement, because like this was our fence there. This is their yard. It's very dense vegetation, so it's not like we're creating unnecessary shade. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. Because if we're made to cut this fence, then we will end up building another fence on top of the deck that we're putting in, which will actually be higher than the current fence, because we can go as high as 24 inches of a deck without a permit. That's the bylaw. So then if we had to scrap our plans and then say we build a deck that's 24 inches then we'll have a fence that's 8'6" then versus the 8-foot fence that's already there now. So it actually, if the issue is for our one neighbor where it's about an 18-foot section that they're affected by because there's their shed here, which is higher than our current fence, then there's their property, and then over here is the other neighbor, which is an agreement that has their shed. So then they're going to end up with a 6 inches higher and 2 fences instead of 1, with not a very nice aesthetic. Yeah, so that's essentially what we're trying to do here is just create a beautiful space. The blinders, because the deck, like my daughter's 12 and she's almost like 5'10", right? So standing on the deck, because Royal York is this way, on a 2-foot deck, when she's standing there, a fence that's 6'6" will cut her right about here. Royal York's very busy, so the gaps in between the 2 houses, potentially people will be able to see my family in their bathing suits. I really don't want that. So again, I don't see that I'm encroaching on anyone here. Our interpretation of the bylaw was, because it says above a deck, it didn't say on the deck. So I figure, well, it's above the deck because the fences will be 1 inch to 4 inches away. So it is essentially above the deck. That's it. Thank you for your time. Oh, these are the additional letters if you'd like them.
Okay, the clerk can collect those in a moment. Questions of the speaker? Councilor Nunziata.
Yeah, just a question. So reading the report, so you haven't built a fence, that you received a notice before the fence was built, correct?
No, we started building the fence. We halted the construction of the fence. We're 2/3 done when Michael and Vito came out and gave us some instruction on it. So we halted the building of the fence to resolve this issue because the bylaw officials couldn't make that decision there. So they instructed us to go through this means. So it has been paused.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Aileen Raditz-Wright. Elaine, welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for your time. I think my husband said pretty much everything. I'd just like to state that we have, through the original application, we have letters of support from the 4 nearest neighbors. So this is our property. So we have a letter of support from here, 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 and here. Since then, we've also got 4 more letters of support from the next 4 nearest neighbors. And in keeping with our neighborhood, when you stand on my balcony, you look this way and you look that way, they're all very similar fences. In fact, our fence that we have is identical for like the 7 contiguous houses have the same fence. And there are portions there where, like us, there's portions that are higher by 0.5 meters to allow privacy and harmony between the neighbors so that everyone can use their yards recreationally. And I once again ask if you guys would please consider letting us keep the fence. You know, I have significant asthma, my daughter has asthma and allergies. And if we have to put a second fence in between the two fences, which I think is very necessary because the other house is back on the Royal York, and our neighbor's deck is also elevated so they see directly into our yard, it doesn't allow a lot of privacy. And for my 12-year-old daughter and my 4-year-old daughter, it would be nice if we can just relax in the backyard, not feel like we have to always be covered in our swim spa. That would be very beneficial, because otherwise it's going to be if we have to put up a second fence or some other structure, it's not going to be very attractive. The fence that we put up is over $20,000 so far on the two sections, and we spent another $4,000 to clad our neighbor's fence. We had told them about the fence. They had stated that they wanted any fences just to be built on our own properties and for us to assume all of the costs, which we were happy to do. In a gesture of good faith, we faced the back of the fence as well, which is not a typical thing for people to always do, but we wanted harmony. And also to promote harmony, we pulled back our fence 5 inches off of our own property line, because Tom and Isabel, who's a lovely elderly couple that live in the back, their shed, which is a beautiful little shed, overhangs our property a couple of inches. So we pulled it back 5 inches just to promote harmony within the neighborhood, because we all have to live here and everybody has busy, important lives, and our backyard should be a sanctuary where we can rest and relax and have time with family. So thank you very much. My daughter has also read something, so it'll be quick.
Well, if you just hang on, please. Yeah,
Sure.
we'll call her up in a moment. Any questions of the speaker? Questions? I had one really quick one.
Councillor Holiday, questions?
It was mentioned that you had cladded the neighbor's fence. Could you just explain?
Oh, sorry. So
I didn't understand.
So my fence is we have 6-inch wooden posts, and then we put pieces facing our side.
Yes.
So if you just face one side of it, so the other side would just show the framing. So we clad the other side of the fence as well. So we got 50 feet along the back with pressure treated lumber. It looks really nice. Like, it's really pretty. Like, Michael 2 doors down started it, and then we all copied him. So it looks really nice. It's very harmonious.
Okay.
So we faced both sides of it. So we put extra lumber on the back so that their side looks finished and smooth, and not just like the fence post sticking out.
It's a horizontal fence, right?
Yes, it's a horizontal
So I have the report in front of me. I think those photos were not taken from your yard, but from a different one. Does that make sense?
They look identical. So because we put extra boards on the back of the fence, so you've got your 6-inch post, the 6-inch post.
Yes.
In the frame, and then you clad your own side, so it looks pretty.
I see.
You don't have to clad the opposite side.
Right.
It'll still be structurally intact. But we cladded the opposite side as well, so that for Jeff, when you look at the fence, it looks like a beautiful fence. The contractors call it the non-paying side. Usually you don't have the fence boards on it, but we cladded both sides.
I understand. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lexi, you read it right.
Hello, Council.
Welcome.
Oh, hello. Oh,
Please go ahead.
hello, Council members. Thank you for taking the time to hear me speak. My name is Lexi Rose. I am 12 years old and I live at 140 Kingsway with my parents and my 4-year-old sister, Skylar. My family has recently put a beautiful fence in our backyard. It blocks the back neighbors from seeing me and my sister in our swimsuits when we're in our backyard. Jeff, Estelle, and Julian, our back neighbors, have a high deck on the back of their house and used to be able to see us on our yard. Our backyard also backs onto houses onto Royal York, which is a very busy street with lots of people walking around that can see our yard between the houses. My family is putting in a swim spa that's 4.5 feet tall with a regular 2-meter fence. People could see me and my sister, my mom, in our bathing suit from Jeff's deck and from Royal York. With the higher 2.5-meter fence, we now have privacy, and I feel much more relaxed and safe with my safe. I'm here to ask the council to please let us keep the 2.5-meter fence and not make us cut it to 2 meters. My parents thought they were following the bylaws because we can build a 2-meter tall fence on top of a 0.5 meter tall deck we were building, so we thought we could do 2.5 meters. If we have to take the top of the fence down, it will mean we have to build a second fence just inches away from the first fence. Also, the space in between the trees could be full of leaves and mold. I have asthma and an allergy to leaf mold, so it would make it hard to use my family swim spa. Also, the 10 nearest neighbors to us have fences just like ours, with similar wood structures and sections of fence that are higher than 2 meters, just like parts of our fence. Please think about our fence exemption request and let us have a fence similar to our neighbors that looks nice, doesn't trap leaves, and makes space for mold and wild animals to live, so we can use our backyard safely and privately. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No.
Actually, I just want to say, you said you're 12? You're very mature for 12.
Thank you.
Thank you for the deputation.
Our next speaker is Jeff Kerr. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. So thank you for allowing me to speak at this meeting. We've come to strenuously object to the fence exemption request. The fence that's been built is much too large for a residential backyard. It looks like the green monster at Fenway Park. The support from the neighbors doesn't make sense, as when they constructed their fence, both were done on the same day. They didn't want such a large fence in their own backyards. It goes against the municipal bylaws that have been enacted to prevent this very type of occurrence. So I've got some bullet points. First, the support from the neighbors. The support from the neighbors is contradicted by their own actions. The neighbors at 150 the Kingsway and 1069 Royal York had a fence built by the same contractors on the exact same day. The fence posts were installed all in a row at the same time. These neighbors chose to build their fence at the appropriate height. The neighbors at 146 previously built a backyard fence, once again, the Kingsway. Once again, that fence is built at the appropriate height. They have a pool back there, by the way. None of the neighbors that have written in support of this exemption chose to build such a high fence for themselves. Our neighbor at 1065 Royal York may have felt pressure to support the exemption because originally he was told they would have to cut into his tiles under his shed to build the fence. The fence is almost entirely across our backyard. Our lot's 42 feet, this fence is 52.5 feet long. In other words, the amount of fence affecting the other neighbors is only about 6 feet on either side. Our home's a single-story, 1,200 square foot bungalow. The height of this fence is disproportionate to the height of the house. It's barely noticeable to them when they look at both fences to the north and the south that are built across their backyards are of the appropriate height. Now, I'll also say, when you look around the neighborhood, I don't know what they're talking about, except to say that certainly there are some fences that are privacy fences for decks and spas and pools that people build up by their house, like everybody does. So of course there are some higher fences up on decks by the house. Nobody would question that, right? How it was erected. The process was handled in bad faith from the start. They did not consult us about the fence. They did not get a survey. They didn't seek to get the appropriate exemptions before they began the construction. Rather, they arranged to have the fence erected over the Easter weekend when we had plans to be away. We only heard about it after we reached out to them after being advised by other neighbors that it was even happening. When they finally did meet to talk about it, they never mentioned it would be this high. They just said it would be a beautiful fence. When we finally did meet, they also said in writing it would be entirely on their side of the property line, which we don't believe it is. There had been a chain link fence in place prior to the construction of this fence, and yet they told our neighbor that they would need to cut his tiles of his shed to build the new one. Low wrought iron or chain link fences are much more in keeping with the neighborhood than even bylaw height wooden fences. It's just not part of this neighborhood aesthetic. Finally, the municipal bylaws. I think there's a long process for creating and changing bylaws. People have to come out, there's massive meetings, study and debate goes on to the decisions. The maximum size of fences was agreed upon for a reason. It's also clear that the potential for these types of fences to be built too high was foreseen, because that's why they won't let you build a deck close to the property line. If everybody could build their deck to the property line and just add a high fence, then everyone would have a 10-foot fence. They are seeking this exemption to build a swim spa. The fence should be removed with a lower one that would be constructed entirely on their property, and the second larger fence could be built according to bylaws to accommodate the swim spa. No problem. In conclusion, we do not believe you should support this fence exemption. This fence is an eyesore. It's entirely too high. The neighbors directly to the north and the south both have fences in their backyards built to the correct height in municipal bylaws, have been carefully considered and enacted by elected officials to prevent these mega fences from being erected. This fence should not have been built until the proper exemptions had been sought and considered. These neighbors had no consideration for us or the city bylaws when they contracted and arranged to build this fence without telling us or the city. It is the arrogant attitude of it's better to seek forgiveness than to ask permission. This fence should be removed with a lower one that would be constructed entirely on their property. A second larger fence could be built according to bylaws to accommodate their swim spa. We ask that you deny this fence exemption request. I welcome any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Councillor Perruzza.
So is it 8 feet deep of the fence that abuts you?
Microphone.
Of the fence that's 8 feet tall, they said it was 18 feet between the shed and some other shed.
It goes across the whole backyard. I think what they're saying is that we have a shed that's back there, so you can't really see it. It goes across the whole stretches across our whole backyard and over a little bit onto one side and over onto the other. So the folks that are approving that have written letters in support, they don't see this fence out their backyard. They see a sliver of it on each side at the back end of their yards.
And so between 6'6" and 8 feet, is that much difference, right? Like here to here, right?
I think there's pictures. So if you take a look at the pictures that they've even provided, it's ridiculous.
But 6'6".
Okay, sounds good.
8 feet.
I'll stipulate that.
Is a foot and a half, right?
Sure.
That would be like more or less a foot and a half, right? From this end to there.
Sure.
And that's like really, really offensive to you.
I think you have to see it too. Yeah, like I can send in pictures. It's plus now they're saying it's expensive. Yeah, first of all, it is. Secondly, they're talking it only 2/3 so far. Come on, they're saying it's only 2/3 so far.
Okay. No. I meant the height difference between 6'6" and 8 feet is 1'6". That's the difference, right? The difference.
Well, that's the difference of the height. But already the 6-foot fences don't look super attractive compared to the chain link that used to be there in every property, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Starts to look a little bit like other neighborhoods in the suburbs.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Perruzza. Councillor Morley.
Thank you for your submission and for your participation as part of the process here today. The thing that's sticking out for me the most is the privacy concerns for the applicant and their family and that. And so I just wanted to get your sense of whether or not you think that that's a justifiable reason to want to have a little bit of a change to, instead of having a see-through chain link or otherwise open fencing. Do you appreciate the sort of desire around the privacy concerns for the family?
I definitely do, sure. So I can see how people can have a privacy fence. There's other ways like vegetation, I guess, but at the end of the day, a privacy fence, I get it. But I think the city thinks the same way. So I think the city said, let's study for a long time how high a fence should be. And they should be 6.5 feet. That provides the privacy. Now, of course, you build a deck, right? You can have some additional privacy like some people do have. Look around neighborhoods, you can see them. I can assure you that 1%, I would say 0, but I can't say 0 honestly, are nowhere near the property line. They're off to the side of a deck, mostly near the house, where every other person builds their spas and pools, including friends and neighbors. I mean, everyone builds their spa by the house.
Thank you. Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Questions of staff? Councillor Morley.
I wonder if staff could comment for us on, to pull the thread that my colleague Councillor Perruzza mentioned, what is the difference between the allowable bylaw currently with respect to the height and the proposed height that the family is looking to go up to? Can you confirm exactly what the difference is? Sorry, I think we might have someone online, maybe.
Just pause your time for a sec.
Is there anybody who can speak to this?
Okay, I'm going to try to unmute the mic.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I see you, Spencer. Thank you. Just going to get you on.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Thank you, Spencer. And with respect to the nature of fences in that neighborhood. We understand often fence exemptions are sought, and the applicant has mentioned that it is in keeping generally with the existing fence heights in the area. Can you confirm or share any comments on that? That's helpful, Spencer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Councillor Crescent.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Spencer, you visited the site? Okay, so Spencer, you didn't attend, but somebody who did attend. Can you just tell me the condition of the fence? Is it properly installed, safely installed? Just want to confirm that aspect of it. Can you tell me that?
Yes, through the chair. So that's correct. As far as property standards are concerned, the fence is constructed safely and equal to the property standards.
All right, and again, just to confirm the difference, so the height, what is a normal height, the allowable height of a fence currently as per the bylaw?
Determined by the location of the fence, in this case, in a rear yard where there is, oh, sorry, just a second. So in a rear yard where there is no driveway, the allowable height is
2.2? 2 meters. And the exemption that they're looking for, so what is the height that they took the fence to?
So the exemption they're looking to keep the fence at is at 2.5.
So just talking half a meter difference. Okay. Thank you, Spencer. That's fine. I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question. Councillor Nunziata?
Councillor Holiday, questions?
Spencer, can you tell me what is the amount of height in question? Because I recall there's a method for calculating the difference between two grades on either side of the fence. So what is the delta, the amount of deviation in terms of height that this community council is deciding upon? If a 20-inch tall deck was present, as was discussed in the deputation, how would one compute the difference? So I think 20 inches is 50 centimeters. How would one compute? Would you delete the height of the deck and divide by 2?
Through the chair, no, because fence is on the property line, so fence is measured for the height of the fence itself. There actually needs to be a setback in order for them to move the deck. And I believe what the applicant is trying to convey is if this fence exemption was denied, they would have to build a privacy fence or screening, which would be allowed to build on their deck, to which they could erect at their desired height of 2.5 meters. But as per the fence bylaw, as long as the fence is on the property line and it's considered a fence that's separated two properties, it does need to remain at 2 meters.
Oh, you said something important. I just want to understand. If the applicant was to build a privacy screen on the deck, how tall would they be allowed to build it?
Well, technically, under the bylaw, there is no height requirement for a privacy screen.
Okay.
So there is a fence bylaw, but once it becomes a privacy screen, it can be conveyed that it's a landscaping feature, which is not subject to any height requirements, which is what the applicant is trying to convey. Should the fence application, fence exemption application rather, be denied, they would be left with the recourse of having to build a fence or a privacy screen on the deck, which they can then get the privacy they desire and not be subject to restrictions of the fence bylaw.
Okay, and just back to the deck, is there a separation required between the deck and the fence?
That's correct. So there would be a 1 meter setback from the fence.
Okay. Okay, so that's why you can't divide the height. Okay, thank you, very helpful. Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, to speak. Councillor Morley.
I want to thank everybody for their involvement here today, and thank you to the family and applicants for taking the time to join us, as well as to the neighbor for coming to share your concerns with respect to this application. I am looking to grant the application for the offense exemption with conditions, and the conditions being the installation be maintained in good repair without alteration, and at such time as replacement of the fence is required, that such installation will comply with the municipal code for fences or its successors bylaw. So that is my motion here on this item. And again, this is a tricky one, but we do understand some of the challenges on the site-specific concerns for the family, and privacy and enjoyment of your property is really important. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Let me just get that motion up. Okay, Councillor Morley grants the exemption. Actually, I should check. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none. Councillor Morley moves to grant the exemption. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. Okay, we have 2 items left. Sorry, there's 5, but 2 with registered speakers. I'm just going to go to 6.9, which is 55 Allenhurst Drive, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. There's 1 speaker, which is Violet Jugloff. Is Violet here? Violet is not here, and Violet is not online. I'm just going to confirm. Okay, members, I indicated at the beginning of the meeting that I was going to move to defer this to next day. Madam Clerk, do you have that motion ready? I'm moving that consideration of the item be deferred until September 18th, 2023 meeting of the Etobicoke York Community Council. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. Okay, we're just going to go back up to the top of the list. EY 6.4, I did receive a note, and that was just to vary the speaking order because of a connection issue. And so, the first speaker is Geeti Nouri. Geeti's online, and I wondered if we can connect Geeti. Good morning. It's Stephen Holiday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We can hear you. We welcome you on this particular item, and just to let you know, you've got 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready. Thank you. Kitty, can you wrap up, please, because you're over time? Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Adam Rogers. I think Adam is connected digitally as well. Good morning still, Adam. It's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear us? I can. Please go ahead. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, Adam. Our next speaker is Tomas Pater. Tomas, welcome.
You must excuse my nervousness. This is the first time in my life I'm addressing such esteemed individuals. May I address you as your exalted bloatedness?
Please don't. We're the community council, but...
Just community council?
Yes.
Well, at least I don't have to address you as Mr., because that's what I call the lawyers, so you don't want to be lumped in with those guys.
Welcome to the community council.
Thank you.
You've got 5 minutes to speak.
Yes. So my wife and I, we own the property at 3823 Bloor Street West. So nobody's going to be impacted more than us. We have approached Liberty Developments not once, not twice, but 3 times to be bought out since we own this property. And we've been, rebuked 3 times, so I guess 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. So their proposed development is going to be to erect a wall 100 feet wide by 100 feet tall, 4 feet from our structure, 3 feet from our roof, 4 inches from our fire escape. That's concerning in the fact that the existing structure doesn't have such solid foundations, and that we have a tenant on the 2nd floor. So my issues here are to address this particular wall that's going to be erected with a 0-degree setback. Number 1, this wall must not contain any windows. And I say this based on this document, which is the updated tall building setbacks from the city-initiated official plan amendment of zoning bylaw amendments, which states on page 2, these updated setbacks protect important planning principles, blah, 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 and protecting the development potential of adjacent sites, which is what I have here. Page number 11 sets protecting development potential of other sites within the block. When tall buildings are constructed too close to the side or property lines, the result is a first to the post development scenario. So that's why I'm insisting that this wall have no windows, because it would impede on the potential development of our site as a tall structure. So my requirements are this. When this wall is erected, number 1, and most importantly, it does not contain any windows. Number 2, because our tenant is located 4 feet away from this proposed wall, that this particular wall be constructed as a significant firewall. And point number 3, that in order to properly develop our corner of this site, that this wall be not only a firewall, but a structural firewall, 100 feet high by 100 feet tall. Because our future development plans, since we're not being privy to this development site, is to hopefully erect a structure of at least 45 meters in height. So that's the issue I have with Liberty. Secondly, the future development of the site is like this. Our lot is roughly 40 feet wide by 100 feet deep. We have retained an official city planner, and he is going to be talking, and he's going to be proposing future development of the site with the appropriate setbacks, elevator requirements, and stairwell requirements. If we develop this site ourselves or any other future developer, that would leave a floor space area for residential units of approximately 2,000 square feet. Now, council is aware that when you guys removed the Spaghetti Junction overpasses, you created a whole bunch of land available for development. Council, however, may not be privy to the fact that when you redesigned Beamish, right next to my site, you also created an extra 16 feet along Bloor, which can be further development, which adjoins my site on the east side. I have made a structural calculation. I would hope that the City of Toronto would allow us to purchase, or the future developer to purchase, an additional 700 square feet, which would fit in line with the development of the site. All that 700 square feet would go directly into the development of our proposed development. So that would be the difference between 2,000 square feet per floor, or roughly 3 one-bedroom condos, or 2,700 square feet per floor, in other words, 3 two-bedroom condos. Now, I'm being an immigrant. I arrived in Canada 50 years ago, right, with being 6 years old at the time. You know, I didn't have much to say in the matter because, well, mama, right? Do as mama says. But after living here 50 years, and I know exactly how immigrants, come to this country. What do they bring with them? They don't bring their cars. They don't bring their furniture. But what they do bring with them is their family. So the future development of, two-bedroom condominiums as opposed to one-bedroom condominiums is huge. And so those are my concerns here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Is there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for speaking to us today.
Thank you. If you wish, Vlad Developer will talk to you or my wife.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Terry Mills. I think Terry is by video conference. Do we have Terry online? Good afternoon, Terry. It's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear us? Terry, can we get you to check your mute? Because we can't hear you. I can now hear you. Terry, can you wrap up? Thank you, Terry. Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, Terry. The next speaker is David Mackay. David is here in the room. Welcome, David. Please go ahead when you're ready. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. David Mackay, registered professional planner with MHBC, representing the applicant. Just first would like to thank staff. We've worked diligently over the last 18 months to resolve a number of their concerns and issues, including overall block planning, the location of the public park, the configuration of the road, the height, density, and massing that's proposed as part of this project. So we worked diligently with them. We think we've resolved a number of their concerns and issues that have been raised throughout the process. As you can see by the staff recommendation, there are some technical matters to finalize in terms of the details, but we're working with them, and those will be dealt with prior to the bill going forward. I just wanted to respond to a number of the comments that were raised today by the public. And I think two of them mentioned the loss of retail on this site. And to be clear, our client, who has owned this property for the last 50 plus years, is not interested in removing the tenants. They all have the ability to come back. We are working with staff on a phasing plan to allow that to occur in an appropriate manner. And that includes the shoppers as well as other tenants, as well as office space on the second floor and the future proposal as well. So we believe that the amount of retail and service will be met and will service the community now and in the future. And frankly, there is no restrictions on the retail component. There's a minimum requirement in the bylaw. So if there is a demand for additional retail, obviously my client's not going to say no to that. Relative to the positioning of the retail, we've placed it on Bloor Street to strengthen that as the main street and to place the green space that connects into the existing area to the south as well as further to the east along Dundas. And that was purposeful to relocate that area and to divide that up accordingly. There was comments about construction and concerns with noise and traffic and whatnot and the psychological impacts of those items. We will work with staff through a construction management plan to ensure that appropriate construction methods occur. And relative to sun shadow that was raised, we are meeting the tall building guidelines in terms of separation distances. We've worked diligently with staff to position the buildings to adequately limit shadow impact on adjacent properties. Lastly, with regards to the last two members of the public who have spoken, in terms of that property, you heard it right from their mouths. They wished Liberty to buy them out. That did not occur, obviously. However, the proposed development does allow for them to redevelop. It may not be clear on the drawings, but there is a blank wall condition, a window wall condition there, so that they can put up their 8-story building, should they wish. It will be built to code, including structural and fire protection. And ultimately, their development rights will be protected. They will, like anyone else, have to go through an approval process, like our client did, to enable those rights to occur. So with that, I'd like to be happy to answer any questions that committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maria De Angelis Pader. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, thank you.
You have 5 minutes. Please begin when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, as you know, I'm one of the co-owners of 3823 Bloor. And as was mentioned, the property is right next to the property line of 3825 Bloor Street. It's about less than a meter away from the property line. And the fire escape is 6 inches away as well. So having this wall erected on the side without any step back or anything of that nature, if there were a fire or something, it would impede the impact of my tenant to escape should that happen. So it is a RUAC zoning in any case. So there is some issues I had with the proposed bylaw that I was looking at. And there is a 0 meter setback, but one of the issues I had was that at 8M, it permits for encroachments onto the 0 meter setback, as the way I'm reading it. So it says, despite regulation, etc., the following elements may encroach into the required building setbacks and main wall. So if there is an encroachment of any eaves or cornices or columns or balconies or what have you, that encroachment at a 0 meter setback would mean an encroachment onto my property. So I would probably suggest that the bylaw, an exemption be added to it to take away that type of encroachment onto any setbacks with a 0 meter property. The other issue I had was with 8Q, and the definition of a wall is as defined in section 800, chapter 800 bylaw. And so the main wall, I understand that as the speaker before was mentioning, that it would be a full thickness firewall or some kind of firewall that would protect. Because my main concern is that if something were to happen, that my property would be damaged, whoever's living there would be hurt. It's a concern considering how close this proposal is. So I would like to see something where the definition is expanded to include that it be a full thickness firewall, that the main wall be redefined for cases where there's a 0 meter setback on the property. My final kind of concern was the diagram 7. It forms part of the bylaw, from my understanding, once it's passed. And now diagram 7 on my part, where it shows my property line, it says 7.5, and I'm not sure what that means, if it's 7.5 meters or what have you. But it seems, the way it's drawn, that it's encroaching onto my property. So I'm not sure if that's the case, or if not, because other spots where there was writing done, you would need an arrow, let's say, to kind of say that it does not encroach onto my property. So that's my other kind of concern with that diagram. And that's about it.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Thank you for speaking to us.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this matter? Seeing none, questions of staff. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a massive development, a big file in my ward, and as we know, the development of 6 Points has been an exciting ongoing undertaking. I just wondered if you could comment specifically to the conversations between and just the concerns around the firewall and the requests from the abutting or adjacent property owner.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, it would have been nice had this development included up to the corner. And as was mentioned, there have been past discussions and negotiations, and unfortunately, well,
thank you.
Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for one reason or another. The current OP and zoning, well dated, the Etobicoke Center plan is old. It would allow for, as of right, up to 15 meters on lots fronting on Bloor here, EC1 zone. So you're looking in that 3, 4, 5-story range as of right. Clearly, 8 stories as part of the Bloor Street frontage with this proposal. Could a different height be considered? Yeah, but it's a very, very small, tight site that's left as a remnant. So what's its potential to, ultimate development potential? I don't know. I mean, we'd have to look at a proposal. We haven't seen one, but there is base as of right there.
And planning staff is confident that if we go forward with approving this application today, that the rights of the abutting neighbor will be respected and they'll be able to move forward with any future development of their site.
Yes, and through you, Chair, this situation is unfortunately often common in the city where we do have a blank wall on a side lot line condition on main streets like this. Yes, there'll be appropriate fire rating, fire separation, fire protection elements as part of this. But, would we rather see a development go to the corner with windows rather than an 8-story blank wall? Yeah, that'd be preferable. But this kind of condition is pretty common throughout the city in a side lot line situation. One building ends, the next one down the road will be built up against it.
Great. I had one final question with respect to this application, and it is with regard to community benefits specifically. This obviously came in prior to me taking office, and we've since had new legislation from the provincial government. I know conversations and negotiations are underway specific to that, and those conversations will continue. But I just wondered if you could provide some comment, as this seems to be an application that sort of is inheriting the new legislation, what that impact actually looks like for the community.
Sure. Lots of legislative changes affecting planning in the last year or so. And one of the big ones was there's no longer Section 37. Essentially, what's replaced it in terms of public benefits that we might get is a community benefit charge, which is 4%. While we have had some internal discussions on what that value might be, it's not reported on yet because it's done at the appropriate time. That is a charge that would be applied to all developments like this. However, the city staff have been, I don't know if experimenting is the right word, but we've been trying out in-kind discussions in the last year where, in fact, to the satisfaction of, say, the ward councillor and ourselves, if an applicant and ourselves can reach an agreement on providing really specific matters of certain value, it would be in replace of the CBC or a portion of the CBC. Those discussions have been occurring here. There is a recommendation in the report that refers to that, but it hasn't been landed yet. So we hope there'll be an in-kind package that we're all happy with, but if not, CBC will kick in.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? If I may pass the chair, I had just a couple of my own.
Councillor Holiday, questions?
Thank you. Mr. Mitzi, I just wondered, some concerns were raised about fire separation, about fenestration of the wall, and how that relates to the site. Is there anything in the discussion today that is applicable to zoning, or is that all within site plan?
Well, I mean, we have draft bylaws attached here, and development could go right up to a side lot line. How that wall looks down the road, I think is something we'll deal with a little more through the site plan control. What are the architectural cuts, the patterning on that wall? Obviously we don't want just a plain wall. Wherever possible, we try to make these look a little better than just a plain wall. But in terms of fire code's separate and is applicable in all situations, so none of that would be compromised. But I think at this stage, have we put any attention to that wall condition? Not really.
Okay. And sir, I'm sorry, our procedures just don't allow for rebuttal. But
Mr. Chair, before we continue, do we want to move that we finish the agenda? because it's close to 12:30.
Councillor Morley moves to finish the
Move to
agenda.
Finish the agenda.
We have 3 items, which I believe are just add-ons. Yep, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Sorry, please, go ahead.
No,
I think we answered it.
yes, I think so, Chair.
All right, so just in terms of community council contemplating any of the concerns that were raised, the vast majority of that is within the site plan, unless we were talking about changing setbacks and so on, which would be zoning and,
Yeah, at this stage, the zoning you have before you takes into consideration the impacts of the proposal on all lot line to lot line relationships. This isn't the only one with this corner site. It touches many other properties. And so the bylaw does put in place where there are appropriate setbacks. They're captured in this draft bylaw. But the detailing of how that relationship, how it will look, will be captured more accurately or more in detail through site plan.
okay? And I guess my last question is, and this is a particular item of interest that I've raised on other developments in this set of blocks. Do I read it correctly that the site starts low on the Bloor Street side, which is the north end of the site, and it has buildings that build up in height until you move southerly to the Dundas side where it's the tallest. And then I think the buildings across the street on Dundas are even taller. Is that, have I got that right? It works its way up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, except we would probably describe it the other way. The height node is at the subway and it scales down from there towards Bloor.
Towards the neighborhood.
Correct.
Right. And was that what the Etobicoke Center plan always contemplated?
Well, the Etobicoke Center plan, like all plans like this, do actually speak to this kind of issue. This is an outdated plan in terms of densities and heights, but the principle of scaling back from the subway node, the mobility hub, towards the neighborhoods is reflected in this proposal.
Thank you. No other questions? Okay, members wishing to speak? Councillor Morley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned, this was a file that we inherited and has been fairly far along in the process when I took office. And so we've recently met with the applicant, and we've also similarly been hearing from local community members and working directly with city planning staff. We have some more negotiation to do, and we look forward to those ongoing conversations. But we do believe, this is a center for density. It is marked, as we know, in our official plan and in our Toronto plan, to receive more residents as we are directly on the subway line, and it's meant for intensification here. So we do look forward to retaining some of the commercial on site and making sure that we're really working to build a thriving neighborhood, both for the residents that will be coming into the development, but also for the existing residents in the neighborhood, and we'll continue and to stand up for those important pieces. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be moving staff recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. I'm just going to pass the chair. I'm going to speak briefly, and I have a motion.
Councillor Holiday?
If I may move that motion, Madam Clerk. So there's 2 parts to it, but it really just concerns itself with parking. And this is a motion that I often move concerning developments. And it essentially says that the developer needs to pay attention to the parking levels because the new occupants should not expect to be parking on the street. And I'll just offer the very quick comments to my colleagues. It's with mixed emotions that I deal with this particular development proposal at this community council. I can think of 4 generations of my family that have enjoyed that plaza, and perhaps more. But I have to think really hard. But definitely something that is a central focal point to the community because of the variety of stores there and restaurants. And, this space is beloved. I am pleased to hear that the retail will find its way back into the proposal. That's something that we suffer with all too often in this part of the city. It was built up that way with plazas all over the place that are being converted. So I look forward to that, and I urge city planning and the developer to work as best as they can to preserve those businesses because they are vital, the big ones and the small ones, in that particular plaza. And just, a comment as well about the Etobicoke Center plan. As I did mention through my questions, it's really important to me to see these tall buildings step down towards the neighborhoods. It shouldn't be lost that although that this is in Councillor Morley's ward, that she represents in Ward 3, immediately north of the site is Ward 2 Etobicoke Center that I have the privilege of representing. And I know that the people in the vicinity of that are concerned with the scale and pace and size of the development, and are also concerned with how the spillover parking may occur in their neighborhoods. And, it's not a stretch of the imagination that people will try to park on the street and make life congested for those that live immediately north of this in a very, very different feeling neighborhood. And so that's the purpose of those motions. I hope you support them. I thank everyone for their work on this, and I will be continuing to pay attention to it with interest because it is a vital hub in our community. And I hope, as I said, lots of effort will be put into the staging to preserve these shops and these businesses and these facilities for the community to enjoy. Thank you. Okay, on the amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And on the item as amended, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. We have 3 items left, and I'll just make sure I've got the order correct. First item is a new motion by Councillor Perruzza, EY 6.25, no stopping on Driftwood Avenue. Councillor Perruzza, you want to move the recommendations? Councillor Perruzza moves the recommendations in his letter. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that item carries. EY 6.26, always stop control, Strathburn Boulevard and Melody Road. Councillor Perruzza? Councillor Perruzza moves the recommendation. All those in favor? I'm opposed. That item carries. And EY 6.27, investigation of traffic calming measures on Ben Rubin Drive. Councillor Perruzza? Councillor Perruzza moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. Madam Clerk, we have bills. Okay, who wants to do the bills?
I can't see it.
Okay. I'll read the bills, if you please. That bills 565 to 573 and 599 to 601 prepared for the June 19, 2023 Meeting 6 of the Etobicoke York Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And motion number 2, do we have a volunteer? Councillor Perruzza, don't forget your mic. Microphone?
So, acting under delegated authority at meeting 6, June 19, 2023, be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. That's it. All right. Well, just before we break, I will say a big thank you to the staff and the technical staff on a rather challenging meeting, but we did make our way through it. Thank you to my colleagues on council and all of the city staff. This meeting is adjourned.
All good. You got that right.